I stood alone in the empty movie theater lobby, my designer gown mockingly elegant as I watched my own funeral on the screen. And the irony wasn't lost on me that this Valentino dress had cost more than most people's cars. Yet here I was, completely abandoned by everyone who was supposed to love me. The premiere of Midnight Dreams was supposed to be my breakthrough moment, my triumphant return to the entertainment industry after 3 years of systematic destruction. But instead, I'm watching my stepsister, Emma Chen, wearing my crown, standing in my spotlight, kissing my fiancé, Marcus Sullivan, as the credits roll on what should have been my story. The theater that my grandfather, Chen Wei-ming, had built 50 years ago as the crown jewel of Chen Entertainment Empire now felt like a mausoleum, and every empty red velvet seat seemed to mock me with memories of the packed premieres I used to attend as Daddy's little princess, back when the Chen name still meant something to me beyond pain and betrayal. I can see Emma's face on the massive screen, her perfectly practiced tears as she delivers the lines I wrote in my tiny apartment during those desperate months when everyone thought I was having a mental breakdown, when really I was pouring my soul into a screenplay that I thought would save my career and prove that Sophia Chen wasn't just another spoiled rich girl playing at being an actress. This was supposed to be my moment, I whispered to the empty theater, my voice echoing off walls that have witnessed 5 generations of Chen family triumphs. My comeback after they systematically destroyed every opportunity I ever had, every relationship I ever built, every dream I ever dared to have. The words taste bitter in my mouth because I know now that Emma and Marcus have been planning this for years, ever since grandfather started talking about making me his heir instead of her. Ever since the will reading when he announced that I would inherit controlling shares of Chen Entertainment, because I had the vision and the talent that he said reminded him of himself when he first came to this country with nothing but ambition and a camera. Marcus appears on screen now, his perfectly sculpted face that I once thought was the most beautiful thing in the world. And I remember how he used to trace my cheekbones with those same fingers that are now caressing Emma's face. How he used to whisper that I was his muse and his future, and the only woman who could understand his artistic soul. The lies came so easily to him, each declaration of love carefully calculated to keep me isolated and dependent, while he fed every intimate detail of my life, every creative idea, every vulnerability back to Emma like some kind of emotional spy. And I was too blinded by what I thought was love to see that he was never interested in Sophia the person, only Sophia the stepping stone to the Chen family fortune. The movie reaches the climax now, the scene where the heroine finally stands up to her abusive family and claims her independence. And I want to laugh at the irony because Emma is delivering my words about finding the strength to break free from people who pretend to love you while destroying you piece by piece. She's wearing the exact expression I practiced in front of my mirror, using the emotional truth I mined from my own experiences of betrayal and abandonment. And the audience is probably crying right now, thinking Emma Chen is such a talented actress when really she's just performing my pain for profit. I wrote that screenplay during the darkest period of my life, when every audition mysteriously fell through, when every director who used to take my calls suddenly became unavailable, when my own parents started looking at me with disappointment instead of pride, and I poured all my heartbreak and confusion into creating something beautiful because I still believed that talent and truth would eventually win over lies and manipulation. I was so naive, so desperately hopeful that if I could just create something undeniably good, something that came from the deepest part of my soul, then everyone would see that I wasn't the difficult, unstable, talentless diva that Emma had convinced them I had become. But Emma stole more than just my screenplay. She stole my voice, my story, my chance at redemption, and now she's being praised for her raw, emotional honesty and her breakthrough performance, while I stand here in an empty theater like a ghost haunting my own life. The worst part isn't even that she took credit for my work, it's that she's not good enough to do it justice. Her performance is technically competent but emotionally hollow because she's never experienced real heartbreak or betrayal. She's never had to scrape herself off the floor and find reasons to keep breathing when everyone you trusted has turned their back on you. Marcus kisses her again as the final credits begin to roll, and I can see the photographer's flashes going off in the background because this moment will be on every entertainment blog tomorrow. The new power couple of the Chen Entertainment dynasty, the talented actress and her supportive fiancé, who helped her develop such an emotionally mature screenplay. They'll probably give interviews about their creative partnership and their shared vision for elevating Chinese American stories in Hollywood. And no one will remember that Sophia Chen even exists, let alone that she's the one who lived through every word of that script. I turn away from the screen because I can't watch anymore, can't see them accepting praise for my blood and tears. And I walk toward the exit, knowing that by tomorrow, the entertainment industry will have completely forgotten that there was ever a time when Sophia Chen was considered the most promising young talent of her generation. The lobby that used to feel like home now feels like a tomb, and every Chen Entertainment movie poster lining the walls reminds me of dreams that I'll never get to pursue, of stories that I'll never get to tell, of a legacy that was supposed to be mine but has been stolen by people who were supposed to love me. This was supposed to be my moment, my vindication, my proof that I was more than just a pretty face with a famous last name. But instead, it's become the final nail in the coffin of everything I once believed about family and love and justice. Tomorrow, Emma will wake up as the new face of Chen Entertainment. Marcus will start planning their wedding with my grandfather's blessing, and I'll still be the family embarrassment who couldn't even hold onto her own fiancé, let alone build a successful career. As I push through the glass doors into the cold night air, I realize that this isn't just the end of my career or my relationship. It's the end of Sophia Chen, as I've always known her. And I have no idea who I'm supposed to be. Now that everything I thought defined me has been stripped away by the people who were supposed to protect me. The 3 years leading up to this moment flash through my mind like a highlight reel of betrayal, each memory sharp and clear now that I understand the bigger picture. Now that I can see how every seemingly random setback was actually part of Emma's carefully orchestrated campaign to destroy me piece by piece until there was nothing left of the confident, ambitious girl who used to believe that talent and hard work were enough to build a life. It started so subtly that I didn't even notice at first, small things like Emma offering to help me prepare for auditions, and then somehow getting the exact same roles I was going for. Or Marcus suggesting that I was pushing too hard and should take a step back to focus on our relationship while my career momentum was building. Emma Chen had been part of our family since she was 12 years old, adopted after her parents died in a car accident. And my grandfather always said that the Chen family takes care of its own. But I realize now that Emma never really felt like family to her. She always felt like an outsider, looking in at everything that she thought should have been hers. She was always beautiful in that delicate, ethereal way that photographs well, but she never had the raw talent or the instinctive understanding of character that comes naturally to some people. And I think that's what she resented most about me, not just that I was the biological granddaughter, but that I had the one thing that couldn't be bought or taught or stolen. When grandfather started talking about succession planning 2 years ago, about how he wanted to make sure Chen Entertainment stayed in the family and continued to tell authentic stories that mattered, he made it clear that he saw me as his creative heir, the one who understood his vision for using entertainment to bridge cultures and create meaningful art. Emma's reaction seemed supportive at the time. She even threw me a celebration party and gave a beautiful speech about how proud she was to have such a talented sister. But I can see now that was the moment she decided that if she couldn't inherit the company through merit, she would take it through manipulation and destruction. The campaign began with small sabotages, audition times mysteriously changed at the last minute, callback appointments that somehow never made it to my calendar, scripts that arrived damaged or incomplete, so I had to wing performances that should have been carefully prepared. I started to develop a reputation for being unprepared and unprofessional, which was devastating because I had always prided myself on being the hardest working person in any room. The actress who did her homework and showed up ready to transform into whatever character was needed. Marcus was the perfect weapon because I trusted him completely, because I believed that his love for me was genuine and pure and separate from all the industry politics and family drama that seemed to follow me everywhere. He was from a working-class family in Ohio, the son of a factory worker and a hotel maid, and he seemed so different from the privileged, entitled men I'd grown up around who saw women as accessories to their success rather than partners in their own right. He told me stories about growing up poor and dreaming of something bigger, about how hard his parents worked to give him opportunities they never had. And I thought his background made him more grounded and authentic than the trust fund actors I usually met. What I didn't understand was that Marcus saw our relationship as his ticket to a life he'd always envied. That every I love you was calculated to keep me emotionally dependent, while he methodically destroyed my professional relationships and isolated me from potential allies. He had a gift for planting seeds of doubt, for making me question my own perceptions and memories, for convincing me that my paranoia about Emma was just jealousy and insecurity, rather than justified concern about her increasingly aggressive behavior. "You're being too sensitive," he would say when I complained about Emma taking credit for my ideas in family meetings. "She's just trying to be helpful, and you're reading malice into innocent actions because you're stressed about your career." He was always so reasonable, so concerned about my mental health and my tendency to overthink situations, and he made me feel like I was the problem, like my inability to trust my own sister was a character flaw that I needed to work on, rather than a survival instinct that I should have listened to. The directors and producers who used to fight over me suddenly became unavailable when my agent called. Meetings were postponed indefinitely. Projects that seemed perfect for me went to other actresses without explanation. Emma would express sympathy about my rough patch, while simultaneously booking role after role, building relationships with exactly the people who were shutting me out. And I started to wonder if there was something fundamentally wrong with me that I couldn't see. The worst part was watching my own family start to believe Emma's version of events, her carefully crafted narrative about my declining mental health and increasing unreliability. She had a gift for expressing concern that sounded genuine, for sharing worries about my behavior that painted her as the caring sister trying to help while making me look unstable and difficult. My parents, who had always been more focused on the business side of entertainment than the creative side, started to see me as a liability rather than an asset, and they began having hushed conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Emma played the role of the devoted sister perfectly, always offering support while systematically undermining my confidence in my relationships, always present with a shoulder to cry on when another opportunity fell through while she coincidentally booked jobs with the same people who had rejected me. She had a talent for being in the right place at the right time, for knowing exactly which parties to attend and which hands to shake, and I realized now that she was using my inside knowledge of the industry to position herself strategically, while I was too emotional and distracted to see the pattern. The financial pressure started gradually: expenses that weren't covered, credit card issues that seemed like banking errors, investment opportunities that turned out to be scams, and Marcus was always there with reasonable explanations and gentle suggestions that maybe I should be more careful with money, more practical about my spending habits. I didn't realize that he was feeding information about my finances to Emma, helping her identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited to make me more dependent on family support and therefore more vulnerable to control. By the time I wrote Midnight Dreams, I was desperate and broke and convinced that I was losing my mind, that maybe Emma was right about my declining mental health and my inability to handle the pressures of adult life. The screenplay came from that dark place, from months of self-doubt and isolation and wondering if I was crazy for thinking that the people closest to me were actively working against me. I poured all my pain and confusion into creating something beautiful, something that felt true and honest and real. And for a brief moment, I thought I had found my way back to myself. But Emma was waiting, always watching, always ready to take whatever I created and make it her own. And when I shared the script with my family, thinking that maybe this would be the thing that proved I still had value, she already had plans to steal it and use it as her breakthrough moment. The final betrayal wasn't just that she took my words, it was that she convinced everyone that she had written them, that the emotional truth I had bled onto those pages had somehow come from her privileged, protected life rather than my genuine experience of loss and betrayal. As I felt the car tumble down the cliff, I finally understood that Emma had planned this from the very beginning, that every act of kindness had been a strategic move, that every expression of concern had been designed to isolate me further, and that she would rather see me dead than risk me exposing the truth about who really created the work that was about to make her a star. The board meeting that sealed my fate happened on a Tuesday morning in the conference room that had been like a second home to me growing up, where grandfather used to let me sit in the corner and watch him make decisions that shaped the entertainment industry, where I learned that business could be art and art could be business if you had the vision and the courage to pursue stories that mattered. But that Tuesday, I wasn't the beloved granddaughter learning at the master's feet. I was the family disappointment being formally removed from succession planning, while Emma sat in my usual chair, wearing a black Armani suit that made her look serious and competent in everything that I apparently was not. "The board has decided," my father, Chen Daming, announced in his cold corporate voice that he'd never used with me before, the voice he reserved for business rivals and difficult employees. "That Sophia's recent behavior and professional setbacks make her unsuitable for leadership responsibilities within Chen Entertainment at this time." The words hit me like physical blows because this was my own father, the man who used to brag about my talent at industry parties, who used to say that I had inherited grandfather's eye for storytelling and his instinct for what audiences wanted to see. Emma reached across the table and took my hand with fake sympathy, her perfectly manicured fingers cold against my skin as she delivered her prepared speech about how much she loved me and how difficult this decision was for everyone, how she hoped I would take this time to focus on my health and my personal growth, so that maybe someday I could rejoin the family business in a smaller capacity. Her performance was flawless, managing to look heartbroken about my downfall while positioning herself as the reluctant but responsible choice to take over my responsibilities. And I could see the board members nodding approvingly at her mature handling of such a delicate family situation. "We all want what's best for Sophia," she continued, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "And sometimes loving someone means making hard choices that protect them from responsibilities they're not ready to handle." The irony wasn't lost on me that she was using the exact manipulation tactics that Marcus had taught me to recognize in our relationship. The way abusers frame their control as concern and their destruction as protection, but no one else in that room seemed to notice that Emma's tears appeared exactly on cue. My mother, Chen Lisa, who had always been more interested in charity galas than company operations, wouldn't even meet my eyes as she spoke about family unity and moving forward together. And I realized that Emma had gotten to her too, had spent months planting seeds of doubt about my stability and my commitment to the family legacy. "Sophia, dear," Mother said in her society voice, the one she used with disappointing servants and embarrassing relatives, "we just think you need some time to find yourself, to figure out what you really want from life before you take on such enormous responsibilities." The most crushing blow came when grandfather, my beloved grandfather, who had been my mentor and my biggest supporter, spoke in the frail voice that he'd developed since his illness, the voice that made everything he said sound like it was costing him tremendous effort. "Sophia," he whispered, his once sharp eyes clouded with confusion and medication. "Emma has been taking such good care of me, staying up all night when I was in the hospital, handling all the business details that I couldn't manage. And I think maybe it's time to let her take over since you've been so absent." The word absent felt like a knife to my heart because I had been absent, but only because Emma had convinced the hospital staff and the family that my visits were too emotionally taxing for grandfather, that my hysterical behavior was hindering his recovery. And gradually, I had been excluded from his care, while she positioned herself as the devoted granddaughter who was sacrificing her own career to nurse him back to health. Every time I tried to visit, there was some reason why it wasn't a good time, some medical procedure or important rest period that couldn't be interrupted. And slowly I had been erased from his daily life while Emma became his primary caretaker and therefore his primary influence. "I understand that this is difficult," Emma said, still holding my hand like a concerned sister rather than the architect of my destruction. "But Sophia, you have to see that your recent choices haven't shown the kind of judgment that grandfather needs in a successor." She was referring to Marcus, of course, to my relationship with a man that she had introduced me to, that she had encouraged and supported while secretly using it to undermine my credibility and my decision-making abilities. The financial cutoff was swift and brutal. Credit cards canceled before I could leave the building, apartment lease terminated with 30 days' notice, access to family accounts revoked with the explanation that I needed to learn to manage money responsibly before I could be trusted with larger sums. Within hours of that board meeting, I went from being the Chen entertainment heiress to being essentially homeless and penniless, with only the clothes in my closet and the car in my driveway as evidence that I had ever lived a privileged life. Marcus, of course, was there to comfort me through this difficult transition, offering his shoulder to cry on and his bed to sleep in, while making subtle suggestions that maybe this was an opportunity for me to discover who I was outside of my family's wealth and influence. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise, he said as he helped me pack my belongings, his voice full of fake optimism that made me want to scream. Maybe now you can focus on building a career based on your own merit instead of your family connections. He was so good at making it sound like he was supporting my independence while actually ensuring my dependence. So skilled at framing my family's abandonment as a liberation while making sure I had nowhere to turn except to him. His small apartment became my prison. His minimum wage job became our shared struggle. And his dreams of making it in Hollywood became the focus of our relationship, while my own ambitions were gently discouraged as unrealistic given my recent failures. The desperate months that followed were a blur of rejection and humiliation. Auditions where I was treated like a curiosity rather than a serious actress. Meetings where people seemed more interested in gossip about my family situation than my professional abilities. And gradually, I began to believe Emma's narrative about my declining mental health and my inability to handle adult responsibilities. Marcus was always there with reasonable explanations for every setback, gentle suggestions that maybe I was pushing too hard or expecting too much too soon, and slowly I started to see myself through his eyes rather than my own. Writing Midnight Dreams during that period felt like clawing my way back to sanity, like proving to myself that I still had something valuable to offer the world, even if my family no longer believed in me. Every page was a fight against the voice in my head that sounded like Emma's concerned warnings about my mental state. Every scene was an attempt to capture the truth of betrayal and abandonment that I was living through. And when I finally finished the screenplay, I felt like I had created something that could save me. But Emma was waiting, always watching, always ready to turn my moments of hope into new opportunities for her advancement. And when I shared the script with my family as a peace offering, as proof that I was still the creative, talented person they used to be proud of, she had already planned how to make it her own. The final theft wasn't just of my words, but of my last chance at redemption. My final attempt to prove that Sophia Chen was more than just a cautionary tale about privilege and mental illness. My last desperate attempt to expose the truth led me to the evidence I should have found years earlier: emails between Emma and Marcus detailing their coordination, financial records showing how they had systematically sabotaged my opportunities, and most damning of all, early drafts of Midnight Dreams with my name on them and timestamps proving that I had written every word. But as I drove down the mountain road with that evidence in my passenger seat, my car's brakes failed at exactly the moment when I finally had the proof I needed to reclaim my life. As I felt the car tumble down the cliff, I finally understood that Emma had planned this from the very beginning, that she would rather see me dead than risk me exposing her years of manipulation and theft, and that my family's abandonment had been the final step in a plan that was always meant to end with my complete destruction. Then I opened my eyes and realized I was back in the Chen Entertainment Building elevator, the same elevator that I had ridden thousands of times growing up. But this time, I'm 22 years old again, with 25-year-old memories burning in my mind like a fever dream that refuses to fade. And I know immediately that this is November 15th, 2021, the day before I signed the contract that gave Emma access to my creative projects, the day that everything started to go wrong in ways I was too naive to understand at the time. The elevator's familiar burgundy walls and brass fixtures that once felt like luxury now feel like the gilded bars of a cage. But this time, I'm not the helpless victim being led to slaughter. This time, I'm the predator who knows exactly where all the traps are hidden. My reflection in the polished brass doors shows the same face I had 3 years ago, the same unmarked skin and bright eyes that still believed in fairness and family loyalty. But behind those familiar features lives the accumulated wisdom of betrayal and death, and the burning desire for justice that comes from finally understanding how deeply and systematically I was destroyed by the people who were supposed to love me. I touch my face with hands that remember being 25 and broken and desperate, hands that remember writing midnight dreams in desperation and hope, hands that remember gripping the steering wheel as my car tumbled toward certain death and I have to steady myself against the elevator wall because the disorientation of being back in this young, strong body is almost overwhelming. The elevator reaches the 15th floor with its familiar ding, and I step out into the executive offices where my grandfather's portrait hangs in the place of honor, where Chen Entertainment's 50-year history is displayed in photographs and awards that tell the story of an immigrant's American dream built one movie at a time. But today, I'm not here as the grateful granddaughter learning about her legacy. Today, I'm here as a woman with deadly knowledge and a score to settle, and I can feel my entire demeanor shifting from the eager to please girl I used to be to the cold, calculating strategist that betrayal and death have taught me to become. Sophia! Emma's voice calls out from grandfather's office, that perfectly modulated tone that I used to think was genuine affection, but now recognize as the sound of a predator calling to her prey. And I can see her through the glass walls looking exactly as she did 3 years ago, beautiful and poised, and completely convinced that she's smarter than everyone around her. She's wearing the same Chanel suit that she wore to this meeting in my previous life, the one that made her look serious and professional while I showed up in a casual sundress, because I still thought of family meetings as informal conversations rather than corporate warfare. I walk toward grandfather's office with measured steps, my whole body moving differently now that I understand the stakes of this conversation. And I can see Emma's confusion as she takes in my changed energy, the way I hold myself like someone who has nothing left to lose because I've already lost everything once and survived it. Emma, I say with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes, my voice carrying just enough ice to let her know that something fundamental has shifted. How lovely to see you. I hope you're ready for today's meeting. The confusion in her eyes is delicious because she's expecting the same malleable, trusting Sophia who used to hang on her every word and seek her approval for every decision, but instead she's facing a version of me that she's never encountered before, a version that knows exactly what she's capable of and has no intention of making it easy for her. Of course, she says, her voice just slightly less confident than usual. Grandfather is excited to discuss your new project ideas with both of us. Director James Way is already in the office when we enter, and seeing him again is like getting punched in the chest. Because in my previous life, I was so focused on Emma and Marcus that I never paid attention to the way James looked at me, the way his eyes lingered on my face with something that went deeper than professional interest. He's 35 to my 22, internationally acclaimed for his ability to discover and develop new talent, and his presence in this meeting was supposed to be about offering me the lead role in Phoenix Rising, the film that could have launched my career if I hadn't been too blind and trusting to recognize the opportunity. Sophia, James says, standing up to greet me with the same warm smile that I dismissed as politeness 3 years ago. But now I can see the genuine appreciation in his expression, the way he looks at me like I'm someone worth knowing, rather than just another pretty rich girl playing at being an actress. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I've been following your work, and I think you have something special that the industry needs. In my previous life, I was so flustered by his praise and so eager to include Emma in the conversation that I didn't notice how his compliments were specifically directed at me, how he never once suggested that Emma would be right for any of his projects, despite her growing reputation and her presence in the room. This time, I meet his gaze directly and let myself really see him, the intelligence in his dark eyes, the strength in his handshake, the way he carries himself like someone who has earned his place in the world through talent and hard work rather than family connections or political maneuvering. Mr. Way, I respond, my voice steadier and more confident than it was in my previous life. I'm honored that you would consider me for your film. I've seen your work, and I know that you don't offer opportunities lightly. Emma shifts uncomfortably beside me because this isn't how our conversation was supposed to go. She was expecting to facilitate introductions and position herself as my more experienced, more reliable sister, but instead I'm engaging with James as an equal, while treating her like the irrelevant third party that she actually is. Grandfather enters the room slowly, his health already declining, but his mind still sharp enough to recognize talent and potential when he sees it. And his face lights up when he sees me in a way that makes my heart ache because I know how completely Emma will poison him against me over the next 3 years. Sophia, my dear, he says, embracing me with the same warmth that I took for granted in my previous life. James has been telling me wonderful things about your audition for his new film. The audition that I'm supposed to have tomorrow. The audition that Emma will sabotage by giving me the wrong time and location. The audition that will be the first in a series of professional humiliations designed to destroy my confidence and my reputation. But this time, I'm ready for her. This time, I know exactly what she's planning and how to turn her weapons against her, and I smile at grandfather with genuine affection while mentally preparing for the war that Emma doesn't even know has already begun. James has offered me the lead role in Phoenix Rising, I announce, watching Emma's face carefully for her reaction, and I can see the exact moment when her mask slips just slightly, when the supportive sister expression is replaced by something darker and more calculating before she recovers her composure. I wanted to discuss it with family before making any major career decisions. In my previous life, this was the moment when Emma started planting seeds of doubt, suggesting that I might be moving too fast, that I should be careful about working with directors I didn't know well, that maybe I should start with smaller projects and build up to leading roles. But this time, I'm watching her carefully, and I can see her scrambling to find a way to undermine this opportunity without looking unsupportive. And the desperation in her eyes tells me that she's already committed to a timeline that doesn't include me succeeding on my own merit. That's wonderful news, Emma says, her voice just a fraction too bright. But Sophia, are you sure you're ready for such a big responsibility? Leading roles require so much experience and maturity, and you've been focusing more on writing lately than acting. She's trying to plant the same seeds of self-doubt that worked so well in my previous life, but this time I can hear the manipulation in her tone. And instead of making me question myself, her words just fuel my determination to destroy her completely. I appreciate your concern, I say with a smile that I know makes me look predatory rather than grateful. But I think James is a better judge of my capabilities than you are. The insult is subtle enough that she can't object without looking petty, but clear enough that everyone in the room understands that I'm no longer seeking her approval or guidance. And I can see James hiding a smile because he's intelligent enough to recognize power dynamics when he sees them. This time, I won't be the naive girl who trusted everyone. This time, I won't make the same mistake twice. And as I look around the room at the people who will either become my allies or my enemies, I know that I'll live for myself now instead of constantly seeking approval from people who were never worthy of my love or my loyalty. Emma thinks she's still playing the same game with the same rules, but she doesn't understand that I've already died once and been reborn with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. My immediate actions after that meeting are swift and decisive, each move calculated to protect what's mine while systematically dismantling Emma's power base. And the first thing I do is secure my scripts and creative projects by opening a personal safe deposit box that only I can access, removing every piece of intellectual property from the shared family systems where Emma has been mining my ideas for years. I spend the entire night going through my computers and notebooks, copying every story idea, every character sketch, every fragment of dialogue that I've ever written. Because I know now that Emma has been reading my private files and stealing my concepts to position herself as the creative visionary of our generation. The lawyers I hire are not the family attorneys who have been quietly reporting my activities back to Emma, but independent intellectual property specialists who understand the entertainment industry and who have no loyalty to anyone except their paying client. I want every piece of my creative work documented and copyrighted immediately. I tell them in my new voice that carries the authority of someone who has already been destroyed once and refuses to let it happen again. And I want ironclad contracts that prevent anyone from claiming authorship of my ideas without my explicit written permission. James Way becomes my first real ally, not because I'm manipulating him or using him for advancement, but because he's the only person in the industry who seems to see my actual talent rather than my family connections or my potential vulnerability. When I meet with him privately to discuss Phoenix Rising, away from Emma's watchful eyes and grandfather's well-meaning interference, I can feel the difference in how he treats me compared to every other director who has ever offered me a role. Sophia, he says, leaning forward in his chair with genuine interest, I've been watching your work for 2 years, and you have something that can't be taught or faked. You have truth. The word truth hits me like a physical blow because truth is exactly what Emma has been stealing from me, taking my authentic experiences and emotions and presenting them as her own while I've been gaslighted into questioning my own memories and perceptions. Thank you, I say, my voice steadier than I expected. That means more to me than you know. James nods like he understands that there's a deeper story here, that there are layers of betrayal and manipulation that I'm not ready to share yet, but that he's willing to wait for me to trust him with the details. I want to create an independent production company, I tell him, the idea forming as I speak. something that's completely separate from Chen entertainment, something that can't be influenced or controlled by family politics. In my previous life, I was so desperate to prove myself within the existing power structure that I never considered building my own. But death has taught me that sometimes the only way to win is to change the rules of the game entirely. James's eyes light up with something that might be admiration or excitement or both, and he leans back in his chair like he's seeing me clearly for the first time. I've been thinking about the same thing, he admits. The studio system is broken, too focused on profit and marketability instead of authentic storytelling. If we partnered together, we could create something revolutionary. The word partnered sends a thrill through me because he's not talking about mentoring me or guiding my career. He's talking about building something together as equals. Building this new power base requires cutting off Emma's access to information about my activities, which means reconnecting with the loyal servants and employees that she's systematically fired over the past year for being too attached to me or resistant to change. Mrs. Lin, who was my personal assistant for 5 years until Emma convinced my parents that I was becoming too dependent on staff, nearly cries when I call her and ask if she wants to work for my new production company. Miss Sophia, she says, her voice thick with emotion, I never believed what they said about you, and I've been hoping you would find your way back to yourself. The phrase, find your way back to yourself, resonates deeply because that's exactly what this feels like. Not revenge, but recovery. Not destruction, but reconstruction of the person I was supposed to become before Emma's manipulation convinced me that I was weak and broken and unworthy of success. Mrs. Lin has kept detailed records of all the accidents and misunderstandings that derailed my career, and as she shares her observations about Emma's behavior patterns, I realize that my death has given me the perspective to see what was always obvious to the people who genuinely cared about me. Grandfather's health becomes my next priority, not because I want to win his favor, but because I genuinely love him and because I know that Emma has been controlling his medical care to keep him confused and dependent. I hire a private medical team to evaluate his condition, and they discover that he's been over-medicated and that several of his symptoms are actually side effects of drug interactions rather than natural aging. Mr. Chen's cognitive decline has been artificially accelerated, Dr. Martinez tells me in confidence. Someone has been giving him medications that shouldn't be combined, and the resulting confusion has made him vulnerable to manipulation. The rage that burns through me when I hear this is white-hot and purifying because drugging an elderly man to steal his legacy represents a level of evil that I hadn't fully comprehended even after everything Emma did to me. But this time, I don't let my anger make me sloppy or emotional. This time, I channel my fury into cold, strategic thinking that will ensure Emma's complete destruction. I arrange for grandfather to receive proper medical care while carefully documenting the evidence of his mistreatment, because I know that elder abuse charges will destroy Emma's reputation more effectively than any professional sabotage. Marcus's confusion about my sudden transformation provides me with endless entertainment, because he's so used to my emotional dependence and desperate need for validation that he doesn't know how to respond to my new confidence and independence. When he calls to arrange our usual dinner date, I can hear the uncertainty in his voice as he tries to gauge my mood and adjust his manipulation tactics accordingly. Sophia, he says in the caring, slightly condescending tone that used to make me feel grateful for his attention. You seem different lately. Are you feeling all right? I'm feeling clearer than I have in years, I tell him, letting just enough ice creep into my voice to signal that our dynamic has fundamentally changed. I think I'm finally starting to see people for who they really are instead of who I wanted them to be. The silence on the other end of the line tells me that he's smart enough to recognize a threat when he hears one, but not smart enough to understand that he's already lost this game. Emma's growing panic becomes obvious during family dinners, where she keeps trying to reassert her position as my caring, protective sister, while simultaneously probing for information about my new projects and relationships. Sophia, she says during one particularly tense meal, her voice pitched to sound concerned rather than controlling. I've been hearing rumors about you working with some new people. Are you sure they have your best interests at heart? The irony of Emma questioning anyone else's motives is almost funny, but I keep my expression neutral as I consider how much information to give her. I'm very careful about who I trust, I respond, meeting her eyes directly so she can see that the message is intended for her. I've learned that the people who claim to love you the most are often the ones who are most willing to betray you. Emma's face goes pale because she recognizes her own manipulation tactics being used against her, and I can see her trying to calculate whether I know something specific or if I'm just becoming naturally suspicious. The industry networking events that I attend with James by my side feel completely different from the desperate social climbing attempts of my previous life because now I'm not trying to prove that I deserve to be here. I'm simply claiming my place as someone who belongs. Directors and producers, who used to dismiss me as just another rich girl with acting aspirations, start to take notice when they see me in partnership with James Way, when they hear about our independent production company, when they realize that I'm not seeking their approval, but rather evaluating whether they're worthy of my collaboration. Sophia Chen, says producer David Kim at a premiere after party, I heard about your new venture with James. That's exactly the kind of bold thinking this industry needs. The respect in his voice is genuine because he's responding to my changed energy, to the way I carry myself like someone who has survived complete destruction and rebuilt herself stronger. And I can see Emma watching from across the room with growing desperation as she realizes that her careful campaign to isolate me has been completely reversed. James's protective presence at these events isn't the hovering, possessive behavior that I'm used to from men who see women as reflecting their own status, but rather the confident support of someone who genuinely believes in my abilities and wants to see me succeed on my own merit. When industry gossips try to probe for information about our relationship or my family situation, James smoothly redirects conversations back to our professional projects while making it clear that he considers me an equal partner rather than a protege or potential conquest. The transformation in how people respond to me is dramatic and immediate because confidence is magnetic and success breeds success. And once I stop seeking approval and start demanding respect, the entire dynamic of my professional relationships changes. Emma's network of allies, built on her reputation as the stable, reliable Chen sister, begins to crumble as people recognize that the real creative talent and business acumen in our family has always belonged to me. Film production for Phoenix Rising becomes the stage where my complete transformation becomes undeniable to everyone in the industry, because the performance I give draws from the raw, authentic pain of betrayal and death and rebirth in ways that no amount of acting training could have prepared me for in my previous life. Every scene where my character discovers the truth about her family's lies resonates with the deep knowledge of how it feels to have the people you love systematically destroy you, and James captures something on camera that transcends technique and becomes pure emotional truth. I've never seen anything like this, James tells me after reviewing the dailies from our most intense scene, the one where my character finally confronts her sister about years of manipulation and theft. You're not acting, you're remembering. His words send chills through me because he's more perceptive than I realized. But instead of feeling exposed, I feel seen in a way that Emma and Marcus never allowed. Seen and appreciated for exactly who I am, rather than who they needed me to be for their own purposes. The film becomes an industry sensation even before it's finished, with leaked footage and behind-the-scenes photos generating buzz that money can't buy. And suddenly, everyone wants to work with the new Sophia Chen, who has emerged from whatever personal transformation has made her such a compelling screen presence. Emma's attempts to sabotage the production through her industry contacts backfire spectacularly because the people she approaches are more interested in maintaining relationships with James Way and his hot new star than in helping her settle family grudges. I heard Emma Chen try to convince David Zhang not to provide equipment for your film, Mrs. Lin tells me with obvious satisfaction. But when he saw the test footage, he not only gave you everything you needed, he asked to invest in your next project. The way Emma's manipulation tactics are now working against her instead of for her feels like cosmic justice, like the universe is finally balancing the scales after years of letting her profit from other people's pain. Marcus's attempts to win me back become increasingly desperate and transparent as he realizes that his hold over me has been completely broken, and watching him scramble to reassert control over someone who no longer needs his approval or validation is deeply satisfying. He shows up at my apartment with flowers and apologies, with promises to change and grow, with elaborate romantic gestures that he thinks will remind me of why I fell in love with him in the first place. Sophia, he says, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. I know I haven't been the partner you deserved, but I want to do better. We can build something beautiful together. We did build something, I tell him with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. But what we built was your career and your connections at the expense of my self-respect and my family relationships. The shock on his face when I speak so clearly about his manipulation tells me that he never expected me to gain the perspective necessary to see our relationship for what it really was. And his attempts to gaslight me into doubting my own perceptions fall flat because death has made me immune to that particular form of psychological warfare. The high society networking event where everything comes to a head is the annual Chen Entertainment Gala, the same event where Emma publicly humiliated me in my previous life by announcing her engagement to Marcus while I was still raw from losing both my career and my family's respect. This time, I arrive as James's partner and equal, wearing a custom Valentino gown that makes me look like the powerful, successful woman I've become, rather than the desperate, broken girl I was before. And the difference in how people respond to me is immediately obvious. Sophia, calls out director Michael Chang, rushing over to greet me with genuine enthusiasm instead of the polite dismissal I received last time. James has been showing me footage from Phoenix Rising, and I have to say, you're absolutely luminous. We need to talk about my next project. The respect in his voice is everything I dreamed of in my previous life, but now it feels less like validation and more like simply receiving what I've always deserved. Emma's entrance is perfectly timed for maximum dramatic impact, wearing the same emerald green Versace dress that she wore in my previous life. But this time she's alone because Marcus is busy chasing after me instead of standing by her side as her devoted fiancé. I can see her scanning the room for allies and finding that many of her usual supporters are more interested in talking to me about my film career than in gossiping about family drama. And the isolation she's experiencing is a pale reflection of what she put me through, but still satisfying to witness. Sister, she says when she finally approaches me, her voice carefully modulated to sound loving and concerned, despite the fury I can see burning in her eyes. You look wonderful tonight. I'm so proud of how well you're doing. The performance is flawless as always, but this time I can see through her manipulation to the desperate calculation underneath. And I respond with the same kind of false warmth that she's always used against me. Emma, I say, air kissing her cheeks while making sure my voice carries just enough to be overheard by nearby industry professionals. Thank you for always believing in me, even when I was too naive to see how some people were taking advantage of my trusting nature. The words are carefully chosen to plant seeds of doubt about her own behavior while maintaining the appearance of sisterly affection, and I can see her struggling to respond in a way that doesn't make her look defensive or guilty. James's presence beside me during this conversation is like having a shield against Emma's manipulative energy, because he radiates the kind of quiet confidence that comes from genuine achievement rather than stolen success. And his obvious respect for me makes it impossible for Emma to frame me as the unstable, unreliable sister that she's been portraying to our family. Emma, he says politely but coolly, Sophia has told me so much about you. It must be interesting to watch your sister's career take off so dramatically. The public confrontation happens exactly as I knew it would, because Emma can't resist the opportunity to try to humiliate me in front of the entire industry. But this time, her weapons are useless against someone who knows exactly what she's planning and has already built defenses against every attack. When she takes the microphone during the evening's presentation, ostensibly to celebrate Chen Entertainment's latest successes, I can see her preparing to deliver the same speech that destroyed me in my previous life. I want to talk about family, she begins, her voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom, about how we support each other through difficult times and celebrate each other's growth. But this time, when she starts to discuss my recent struggles and my need for family guidance, I'm ready with a response that turns her weapons against her. Emma's right about the importance of family support, I say when she hands me the microphone, my voice clear and confident as I address the assembled crowd of industry professionals. Which is why I'm so grateful to have discovered who my real family is. The people who believed in my talent even when others were trying to convince me that I had none. The applause that follows is genuine and enthusiastic, Because everyone in this room understands the politics of family businesses and appreciates seeing someone stand up for themselves with grace and strength. Emma's face goes white because she realizes that her usual tactics aren't working, that the victim she's used to manipulating has been replaced by someone who can match her move for move. And when she tries to regain control of the narrative, her desperation makes her sound shrill and unstable rather than concerned and loving. Sophia, she says, her voice rising just enough to betray her panic. I think you're misunderstanding my intentions. I've always wanted what's best for you. I know exactly what you've always wanted, I respond, my voice carrying just enough steel to let everyone know that this isn't a misunderstanding, but a deliberate confrontation. And I'm grateful that I finally learned the difference between people who want what's best for me and people who want what's best for themselves. The murmur that runs through the crowd tells me that people are starting to piece together the real story, and Emma's reputation as the devoted sister is beginning to crumble in real time. Marcus chooses this moment to try to insert himself into the situation, probably thinking that he can play peacemaker and somehow win points with both of us, but his attempt to mediate between us only exposes his own duplicity. Ladies, he says with the charming smile that used to make my heart race, surely we can resolve this privately as a family. But when he tries to take my arm in that possessive way that he thinks looks protective, I step away from him with a look that makes several people in the crowd gasp. Marcus, I say, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent ballroom, I think you've confused me with someone who still values your opinion. The dismissal is so complete and public that he actually staggers slightly, and I can see Emma realizing that her most important ally has just been neutralized in front of everyone who matters in our industry. The rest of the evening passes in a blur of congratulations and business cards and invitations to collaborate, because my public handling of Emma's attack has demonstrated exactly the kind of strength and professionalism that directors and producers want to work with. James stays by my side throughout it all, not as a protector, but as a partner, and by the end of the night, it's clear to everyone that the real power in the Chen family lies with me, not with the stepsister who has been desperately trying to steal my place. Grandfather's recovery happens more quickly than anyone expected once he's removed from Emma's care and given proper medical treatment. And the clarity that returns to his eyes when he realizes how he's been manipulated is both heartbreaking and vindicating. Sophia, he says during our first real conversation in months, his voice stronger than it's been since his illness began. I owe you an apology. I allowed myself to be fooled by someone I thought I could trust, and I nearly lost the granddaughter who has always been the most like me. The will change happens quietly but decisively, with grandfather's lawyers ensuring that Emma can challenge nothing and inherit nothing beyond a small trust fund that will keep her comfortable but powerless. The Chen entertainment empire belongs to someone who understands that business and art are not separate things. Grandfather tells the family during a meeting that Emma attends but cannot control. Someone who has the vision and the integrity to carry our legacy into the future. Emma's embezzlement is discovered during the routine financial audit that I requested as incoming CEO. And the evidence is so clear and extensive that even she cannot explain away the missing funds or the falsified documents that covered her theft. Emma Chen has systematically stolen from this company for over 2 years, the forensic accountant reports to the board, using her access to divert money into personal accounts and investment schemes that benefited only herself. The criminal charges that follow make headlines throughout the entertainment industry, not just because of the amounts involved, but because of the betrayal of family trust that the theft represents. Chen Entertainment heiress charged with embezzlement, reads the Variety headline. And suddenly, Emma's carefully constructed image as the responsible, trustworthy sister collapses under the weight of evidence that she has been stealing from the very family that welcomed her and gave her opportunities. Marcus's true nature is finally exposed when the investigation into Emma's crimes reveals his role as her accomplice and co-conspirator, and the text messages between them that detail their plans to destroy me and steal my inheritance make front-page news in every entertainment trade publication. Aspiring actor's gold digger scheme exposed becomes the story that defines his reputation forever, and the working-class family that he claimed to be supporting with his Hollywood dreams disowns him completely when they discover that he was using them as props in his manipulation of me. Phoenix Rising premieres at the Cannes Film Festival to standing ovations and critical acclaim, that launches both my acting career and our production company into the international spotlight. And watching the audience respond to my performance with genuine emotion and appreciation feels like the vindication that I died trying to achieve. James and I walk the red carpet as partners and equals, both professionally and personally, and the photos that appear in every major publication show two people who have built something real and lasting together. The reviews are unanimously positive, but what matters most to me is that critics recognize the authentic emotion in my performance and praise my ability to convey complex family dynamics with nuance and truth. Sophia Chen delivers a breakthrough performance that suggests she may be the most talented member of her accomplished family, writes The Hollywood Reporter. And seeing my name associated with talent rather than scandal feels like finally being recognized for who I really am. The box office success that follows exceeds everyone's expectations and establishes our production company as a major player in independent film, with distribution deals and development partnerships that give us the resources to tell the stories we want to tell without interference from studios or investors who don't understand our vision. Chenwei Productions represents the future of authentic storytelling, declares the Los Angeles Times, and knowing that James and I have built something that will outlast us both fills me with pride that Emma's theft could never diminish. The pregnancy announcement comes 6 months after our wedding, when James and I have settled into our new lives as partners in every sense of the word, and the twins that are growing inside me feel like proof that love can create rather than destroy, that trust can build rather than tear down. We're going to have 2 babies, I tell James as we look at the ultrasound images together. 2 new chances to get everything right from the beginning. Emma's final desperate attempt to reclaim some measure of relevance happens at our pregnancy announcement party, when she shows up uninvited, tries to make a scene about family reconciliation and forgiveness, but her words fall flat because everyone present can see the difference between genuine family bonds and manipulative performance. Sophia, she pleads, her voice carrying the same false emotion that used to work so well. We're sisters. Surely you can find it in your heart to forgive me and let me be part of your children's lives. Emma, I respond with the calm confidence that comes from knowing exactly who I am and what I'm worth. My children will grow up surrounded by people who love them authentically, not people who see them as opportunities for advancement. The finality in my voice leaves no room for argument or negotiation, and when security escorts her from the party, I feel nothing but relief that my children will never know the confusion of loving someone who sees them as pawns rather than people. Marcus' attempts to contact me become increasingly pathetic as his own life falls apart under the weight of his exposed lies and destroyed reputation. But I block his calls and delete his messages without reading them because I have no interest in the desperate pleadings of someone who never saw me as anything more than a stepping stone to the life he thought he deserved. The man who once made me feel grateful for his attention is now begging for mine, and the irony would be funny if it weren't so irrelevant to my actual happiness. The final board meeting where I officially take control of Chen Entertainment happens exactly 1 year after the meeting where they tried to remove me from Succession. And the difference in how people treat me now versus then is a perfect illustration of how respect must be earned rather than inherited. Sophia Chen Wei brings a unique combination of creative vision and business acumen to the CEO position, announces the board chairman, and we are confident that under her leadership, Chen Entertainment will continue to thrive for generations to come. International recognition follows quickly, with Hollywood studios competing for my attention and offering partnership deals that would have been unimaginable when I was still the broken, manipulated girl who died in that car crash. But the offers that interest me most are the ones that allow me to maintain creative control and tell stories that matter. Because success without authenticity is just another form of emptiness, and I've already learned the difference between achievement that feeds the soul and achievement that only feeds the ego. James's proposal had come naturally, not as a dramatic gesture or a public declaration, but as a quiet conversation between two people who had built something real together and wanted to make it official. I want to spend my life creating beautiful things with you, he said, as we sat in our shared office looking over the city lights, films and stories, and maybe a family, if you want that too. The simplicity of his words made them more romantic than any elaborate speech could have been, because they came from understanding rather than need, from partnership rather than possession. 6 months later, I stand in the same movie theater where Emma and Marcus destroyed me in my previous life, but this time I'm here for the premiere of my second film as director and star. A love story about second chances and authentic connection that James and I created together as both art and autobiography. The theater is packed with industry professionals and family members who genuinely support my work. And the difference between this moment and that terrible night when I stood here alone and betrayed feels like the difference between death and resurrection, between being a victim of other people's choices and being the author of my own destiny. Chenway Productions has become exactly what we envisioned, a global entertainment company that prioritizes authentic storytelling over market manipulation, that discovers and develops talent based on ability rather than connections, and that proves every day that success built on truth is more lasting and satisfying than success built on lies. Our offices in Los Angeles, New York, and Beijing are filled with writers and directors and actors who share our vision of using entertainment to bridge cultures and tell stories that matter. And the projects we're developing represent the future of an industry that has too often prioritized profit over purpose. The twins that are due next month kick actively against my ribs as I watch the opening credits roll, and I rest my hands on my belly while James wraps his arm around my shoulders in the protective gesture that has become natural between us. Our children are going to grow up in a completely different world than we did, I murmur to him as the lights dim. A world where talent is recognized and rewarded, where family means support rather than competition, where love is about building each other up rather than tearing each other down. Emma's current situation provides a stark contrast to my own happiness, not because I take pleasure in her suffering, but because her downfall illustrates the natural consequences of choosing manipulation over merit, destruction over creation. She's working as a background extra in low-budget films when she can get work at all, living in a studio apartment paid for by the trust fund that grandfather left her, and her reputation in the industry is so damaged that even directors who never met her personally know to avoid hiring someone who stole from her own family. The poetic justice of her circumstances isn't lost on me because she's now experiencing exactly the kind of professional isolation and financial insecurity that she inflicted on me, but without the talent or the family support that could lift her out of her situation. Her attempts to rebuild her career are hampered by the same industry memory that once worked against me, and every door that closes in her face reminds me of how it felt to be systematically shut out of opportunities that should have been mine by right. Marcus's fate is even more complete in its reversal, because his working-class family has disowned him for embarrassing them with his gold-digging schemes, and his lack of actual talent means that no amount of charm or manipulation can create opportunities that don't exist. He's back to his original social class, but without the family support system that could have helped him build something genuine. And the Hollywood dreams that once seemed so achievable through his association with me have proven to be mirages that disappeared the moment his deception was exposed. The industry gossip about their downfall has become a cautionary tale about the importance of authenticity and integrity in a business that is built on relationships and reputation, and their names are mentioned in the same breath as other entertainment industry villains who thought they could cheat their way to success. Remember the Chen scandal, people say when discussing the importance of due diligence in hiring. That's what happens when you trust people who have never proven they deserve it. My parents have slowly learned to respect my independence and my judgment, apologizing for their failure to protect me from Emma's manipulation and expressing genuine pride in what James and I have built together. "We were wrong to doubt you," my mother admits during one of our monthly family dinners, "and we're grateful that you found the strength to build your own path instead of letting our mistakes define your future." Grandfather's pride in my achievements is evident every time we discuss business strategy or creative development, and his joy in my pregnancy feels like a blessing on the new generation that will inherit the empire we've built together. "You've taken everything I taught you about storytelling and business and made it better," he tells me as we review the quarterly reports that show Chen Entertainment's continued growth under my leadership. "You've proven that the next generation can honor the past while creating something entirely new." The wedding that James and I planned was small and intimate, focused on celebrating our partnership rather than displaying our success. And the vows we wrote captured the essence of what we've built together both personally and professionally. "I promise to create beautiful things with you," I said as we stood before our closest friends and family. to support your dreams while pursuing my own, to choose truth over convenience and love over fear for the rest of our lives. Career-wise, the international recognition that has followed Phoenix Rising and our subsequent films has opened doors that I never even knew existed, with film festivals and award ceremonies celebrating not just our individual achievements, but our collaborative approach to storytelling. Chen and Wei represent the future of global cinema, writes Film Quarterly, proving that authentic partnership can create art that transcends cultural boundaries and speaks to universal human experiences. The directing opportunities that have come my way allow me to tell stories that matter to me while working with actors and crew members who share my commitment to truth and excellence. And every project we undertake becomes another building block in the foundation of lasting success that Emma could never steal because it's built on genuine talent rather than borrowed achievements. Sophia Chen Wei has established herself as one of the most important filmmakers of her generation, declares Cinema Today, with a unique ability to capture complex emotional truths that resonate across cultures and demographics. Financial independence that extends far beyond anything my family's wealth could have provided gives me the freedom to choose projects based on artistic merit rather than commercial potential, though the two have proven to be less mutually exclusive than the industry often assumes. Success in the entertainment industry isn't just about making money, I tell the business students who study our company's development model. It's about creating value that lasts beyond the immediate profit margin. James and I work together with the kind of seamless collaboration that comes from mutual respect and shared vision. And our personal relationship enhances our professional partnership rather than complicating it because we chose each other based on who we actually are rather than who we needed each other to be. The best partnerships are built on equality, James says when industry magazines ask about our working relationship, and the best marriages are built on the same foundation. As the credits roll on tonight's film and the audience erupts in spontaneous applause, I think about the girl who died in that car crash 3 years ago, alone and broken, and convinced that she had failed at everything that mattered to her. She could never have imagined that her death would become her rebirth, that her destruction would become her liberation, that losing everything she thought she wanted would teach her to build everything she actually needed. Standing here surrounded by people who love and respect me for exactly who I am, carrying children who will grow up knowing they are valued for their own unique gifts rather than their usefulness to other people's ambitions, married to a man who sees me as a partner rather than a prize, running a company built on principles rather than politics. I understand that the greatest revenge against people who tried to destroy me was not destroying them in return, but building a life so authentic and fulfilling that their absence from it feels like liberation rather than loss. This time, I wasn't alone. This time, I had built something that could never be taken away because it was founded on truth rather than illusion, on love rather than need, on creation rather than destruction. And as the final credits finish rolling and James helps me to my feet to acknowledge the standing ovation, I know that the girl who had died alone in that car had truly been reborn into exactly the woman she was always meant to become.